Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released across 5 platforms. In the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and parts of Europe, it was known as Tony Hawk's Skateboarding. The PlayStation version was the first to launch on September 29, 1999, followed by the N64 version in March of 2000. The gameplay. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater allows players to choose from 10 professional skaters, with 2 additional skaters unlocked throughout the game. The objective is to perform tricks and combinations of thereof to increase your score. Movement is controlled using either the D-pad or the analog stick, and buttons are assigned to ollies, grabs, flips, and grinds. Each skater has a unique trick set that reflects their skateboarding style, as well as having these skills divided into 4 stats: ollie, speed, air, and balance. The game features a career mode, which players complete 5 objectives represented by VHS tapes. This was inspired by Super Mario 64's star system. These objectives must be completed within a 2-minute time limit. The player doesn't need to complete all the objectives to progress though. Common tasks include collecting skate letters, finding the secret VHS tape, which would unlock a video for the player to watch, and destroying a set number of objects. 3 of the career mode levels are competitions, where players perform in front of judges aiming to win gold, silver, or bronze medals based on 3 rounds. In skateboarding jargon, these competitions are called heats. Bails or wipeouts can dramatically lower a player's score during these, requiring much higher combos to counteract these penalties. Additional gameplay modes include split-screen multiplayer and bonus minigames such as graffiti, trick attack, and horse. In Trick Attack, the player with the most points within the time limit wins. Graffiti splits players into 2 teams, and the goal is to tag the most map assets by skating over them. The team with the most tags win. In Horse, players compete to score the highest along a designated line on the map, and the player who wins earns a letter. Once Horse is spelled out, that player wins. Level design. The level design in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was led by Mick West, the lead programmer. Neversoft was inspired to recreate specific real-world locations while also brainstorming elements that would make an area more skatable, like ramps, rails, tables, and stairs. Fun was prioritized over realism, allowing players to skate on rooftops, catch massive air, and collide with objects like moving cars. Lines are sequences of tricks or moves that players perform in succession from one point to another. A gap is a skatable goal that is achieved during these lines. Gaps add additional score to the player's combo, and typically is shown with blue text. Gaps will typically have names ranging from basic to complex. Some feature cultural references and others feature subtle humor. This becomes more apparent throughout the series. One of the best known gaps in the game is the holy shit, where players have to grind from one end of the warehouse level to the other. Given the game's mechanics and the lack of an infinite grind balance cheat, this challenge was actually considered quite monumental. Cheats played a big role in Pro Skater's gameplay, enhancing replayability. Neversoft loved cheats and loved to put a variety of them in the game, including infinite special meter, slow motion mode, and big head mode. A few months after the game's release, Neversoft introduced even more cheats, featuring that of Private Carrera, a character that was most likely inspired by an adult film actress with a similar name, Asia Carrera. Neversoft and Tony Hawk have denied this claim. In addition, the character artist for Neversoft at the time, Noel Hines, actually named the character after the Porsche Carrera sports car. However, the deck designs for Private Carrera and the wording in her bio speaks another story. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack was stacked with songs that heavily influenced skate and punk culture. It featured classics like Police Truck by Dead Kennedys, Psycho Vision by Suicidal Tendencies, and most famously, Goldfinger's Superman. This soundtrack gave the game a distinct personality that resonates with skaters and gamers alike. The Pro Skater team knew what they were doing when selecting these tracks, aiming to mirror the music that they found in popular skate videos at the time. I lastly want to mention that the menu music for Pro Skater 1 is considered to be the catchiest original track in the entire series. Skater selection. The 10 playable characters in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater offered a diverse range of skateboarding styles, represented by iconic brands like Flip, Toy Machine, Zero, Birdhouse, and World Industries. Each skater brought their own unique flair to the game, whether it was Bob Burnquist's inventive vert skating or Chad Muska's relaxed street style. Alyssa Steamer also stood out as one of the first female pro skaters to be featured in a major game, offering much needed representation in a predominantly male sport. Tony Hawk himself mentioned that all the skaters chosen for the game were excited to be part of the project. Jamie Thomas and Rodney Mullen were especially involved, contributing their ideas and experiences to help make the game better. Chad Muska made a memorable impression by showing up to Neversoft meetings with his iconic ghetto blaster, community, and early Pro Skater videos. The Pro Skater community began to take shape as Neversoft earned a reputation for actively listening to their fans. An official forum was set up on the now defunct Delphi platform, where Neversoft developers and even Tony himself engaged directly with the fan base. This led to the release of one of the earliest Tony Hawk Pro Skater fanscape videos. At the time, recording gameplay was difficult, with players resorting to videotaping their television screens. One of the first Tony Hawk Pro Skater combo videos was Cawthon's Mother Combo, which featured a low quality but impressive 200,000 point combo on the warehouse level. Initial reception and sales. At launch, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater had a slow start, but sales surged following the 1999 holiday season. According to Matt Piscatella in an interview with The Ringer, he said, "It was the number 31 best-selling game of 1999, selling right around 800,000 units. It was outsold that year by games like Wheel of Fortune, Ready to Rumble Boxing, and A Bug's Life. However, now it's sold over 5 million units in its lifetime, and was the second highest selling game among 1999 releases over time, second to only Pokemon Yellow." The success of the game led to ports on other platforms, including the N64, Game Boy Color, Sega Dreamcast, and even the Nokia N-Gage. Critical acclaim. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater received glowing reviews, with many outlets giving it 9 out of 10s and 5 out of 5s. The Dreamcast version received the highest praise, with IGN awarding it a 9.8 out of 10, calling it imaginative, deep, and very addictive. The N64 version also stood out as one of the best titles on the console. My overall experience with Pro Skater 1 was positive. The game still holds up remarkably well for an old PlayStation 1 title. What I truly loved about the game was how engaging it was from the beginning. The effort and thought was well put into Pro Skater 1. The gameplay clearly reflects this. It was cool that the different characters had their own unique moves and stats. With that being said, Pro Skater 1 felt more like a prototype than a full-on game. Being limited to grabs and flips made achieving combos trickier, pun intended. From my experience, the controls felt stiffer than I remember, leading to me having more wipeouts, and a single wipeout can ruin an entire run. Additionally, the game doesn't feel as optimized as it could be, with frame rate slowdowns on levels like Downtown. Nevertheless, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater kept me hitting that retry button over and over. It's addicting despite those setbacks. The first Pro Skater game established the series so well, representing and reflecting skateboarding culture through and through, with its urban grunge aesthetic, catchy music, and a time-based formula that gives the game an arcade-like, remarkable feel. Enough of that. With Activision's support, Neversoft immediately began working on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, focusing on implementing mechanics that didn't make it into the final cut of the first game. As the series grew in popularity, Neversoft expanded its staff and was officially acquired by Activision. Their goal was very clear. It was to make each installment bigger and better than the last. And that's what they did with Pro Skater 2. The first public glimpse of Pro Skater 2 came at E3 2000, where a demo showcased mostly completed levels like School 2, New York City, and France. The media and fans eagerly anticipated another Tony Hawk game following the success of the original. The game even made it onto the summer 2000 jam-packed demo disc, though it faced initial resistance due to Sony's release of Grind Session, a Tony Hawk clone that received lukewarm reviews. Grind Session used the same game engine that was later repurposed for Razor Freestyle Scooter. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 officially launched on September 19th, 2000. However, the N64 version of the game was delayed to give the original game more time to sell, ultimately pushing its release to late 2001. In October 2001, Treyarch had been acquired by Activision, and they developed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, an enhanced edition of the game featuring additional levels, an exclusive career mode, and improved graphics. Gameplay. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 builds on the foundation of the first game, enhancing the core mechanics while introducing new features that elevate the gameplay experience. The changes are immediately noticeable, improving control responsiveness and overall gameplay fluidity. Special meters are easier to achieve, and board handling has been fine-tuned to make spins and transitions a whole lot smoother. And it makes the game feel more polished than its predecessor. One of the standout additions is the option to switch between regular and goofy stances, and allowing
players to initiate a nollie or fakie, something absent in Pro Skater 1.
Manuals introduced in this installment allowed players to string together longer combos by balancing their skater after performing a trick. The addition of blunt slides also make grinds even more flexible. The game features more dynamic levels, a create a skater mode, and a level editor where players can design their own parks. Levels now contain hidden areas, or secret sections that can be accessed by completing certain objectives. Unlike the 5 VHS tape objectives of the original, each level now has 10 objectives, and players are rewarded with cash for completing them. This in-game currency can be used to unlock new specials, stat points, and decks, providing greater customization and a sense of progression as the game's difficulty increases. The inclusion of more codes and cheats also becomes iconic in this one, with memorable cheats including the jetpack mode and the moon physics mode. Pro Skater 2 retained most of its original skater lineup, while adding legendary skaters like Steve Caballero and Rodney Mullen officially. As a special treat, players who 100% the game with the Create a Skater could unlock Spider-Man as a playable character. Another little fun fact is that the South Korean version even featured the girl pop group band called Fin KL. The level editor was a standout feature in this, offering over 100 assets for players to construct their own dream skate park. While groundbreaking, I find the editor a little bit cumbersome at first. However, the ability to customize not only tricks but entire levels just adds a whole new dimension to the game's replayability, and it's so fresh that it's pretty cool. Level design. The levels in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 are awesome. I feel like they kind of blend both fantasy and real life elements from actual skate parks, while also keeping the game both challenging and entertaining at the same time.
Levels like Bullring was inspired by Birdhouse's The End skate video, while other levels like Philadelphia drew from the real life elements of Love Park and FDR, both iconic skate spots in the skateboarding world as we mentioned in this series. Marseille, the first level set outside the US, featured a visually stunning skyline rich in a gloomy purple aesthetic, making this relatively small map relaxing to play.
The game's first level, Hangar, exemplifies the thoughtful design with its compact layout, providing players with easy access to objectives that help them quickly grasp the game's system. It also introduced environmental changes, such as a helicopter animation that dynamically alters the level's landscape and gives you access to the secret tape. School 2, widely regarded as one of the best levels in the entire series, offers a different experience by spreading out its objectives and encouraging more exploration. The design of the level naturally leads players to discover new lines for high scores, offering a perfect blend of open areas and tight spaces. Every level in Pro Skater 2 gives players a chance to start off by skating a high-scoring combo line, making the game instantly addictive by encouraging players to retry over and over. What truly sets Pro Skater 2 apart is its abundance of secret areas. Every level has at least one hidden area for the player to explore, often requiring a specific action to access. For example, in School 2, grinding this very specific rail when the school bell rings unlocks a secret pool and gym area. These secrets add depth to the levels and make the game feel much more expansive and explorative.
The visual design was also improved, with more polished textures and animations that contrast well with the street aesthetic. Stages like Santa Cruz are a good example of this, with graffiti designs that accurately reflect real skate parks. This attention to detail further immerses players into the skateboarding culture that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 so perfectly represents. Other platforms for the title featured exclusive levels. The PC version featured Warehouse, Chicago, and Downhill Jam. The GBA version also had 2 levels, and the N64 version had a level called Hoffman Factory, which was a level from Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX.
Soundtrack. Pro Skater 2's soundtrack nearly doubled in size in comparison to the first game, offering 15 diverse tracks to complement its fast-paced gameplay. The mix of metal, hip-hop, and punk rock created an unforgettable OST, and each song brought its unique flavor to the table. One of the standout tracks was Bad Religion's You, the oldest song on the OST, hailing from their 1989 record, No Control. Lagwagon's May 16th from their album Let's Talk About Feelings exemplified the evolution of skate punk, showcasing a shift towards more melodic, fast-tempoed sounds with thrashing guitars. Similar to this is Swinging Utter's 5 Lessons Learned and Consume's Heavy Metal Winter. It kind of embodied that sort of high-energy style that skate punk became known for. One of my personal favorites is Millencolins' No Cigar, featured on their album Penny Bridge Pioneers, which went platinum in Australia in 2001. While not strictly skate punk, Fu Manchu's Evil Eye offered a psychedelic stoner vibe with its melodic riffy distortion, and also, its album is pretty skate punk, dude. The hip-hop tracks in this game were electrifying. High and Mighty's B-Boy Document 99 brought an energizing groove, while Dub Pistol's Cyclone introduced a refreshing mix of hip-hop with a little bit of ska with that trumpet. Styles of Beyond's subculture stands out as an underground gem that underscores why I love the genre of hip-hop. It's easy to see how their work influenced Mike Shinoda's Fort Minor project. Black Planet created the song Out With The Old, and it has a kick-ass snare drum and a head-bopping chorus, while Naughty by Nature's Pin the Tail on the Donkey might be my favorite hip-hop track on the OST. And then there's the legendary Bring the Noise by Public Enemy and Anthrax, a genre-blending masterpiece of both metal and hip-hop that also made its way onto the SmackDown vs. Raw OST. What was also featured on the SmackDown vs. Raw OST was Power Man 5000's When Worlds Collide, which added a touch of industrial alternative with Spider-One's campy yet thought-provoking take on social classes. I found it interesting that Papa Roach's Blood Brothers from their album Infest was here. Papa Roach's upfront trauma dumping really made me wish that Last Resort was in this. Finally, a true classic and probably the gold crown of this OST is Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine. With their incendiary energy and powerful lyrics, this track perfectly encapsulates the spirit of rebellion that defined Pro Skater 2. To this day, Pro Skater 2's soundtrack remains one of the best in the series. It perfectly reflected the raw energy that professional skateboarding was known for. This compact 13-track OST, in my opinion, is perfect. Reputation. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was met with universal critical acclaim and is widely regarded as one of the best video games of all time, earning a Metacritic score of 98 out of 100, making it one of the second highest rated games of all time, just behind Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and tying with a couple other games. The N64 version, despite some hardware limitations and the omission of certain songs, was praised as one of the best titles on the console. Critics across the board, including one of my favorites, Electric Playground, praised Pro Skater 2 for its innovative gameplay and flawless execution.
I think this is the best PlayStation video game ever made. There's nothing better than
Well, I gotta disagree with that. Yeah, how about Metal Gear Solid and Tekken 3? You don't!
I like this better than those.
Pro Skater 2 had sold an impressive 5.3 million units across all platforms, proving its commercial success. And by the time of its release, fans were already anticipating the next installment in the series, with Pro Skater 3 just around the corner in 2001. While there's very little negative criticism to be said about Pro Skater 2, one of the minor drawbacks is the slow start in terms of cash and special tricks. Special tricks are just a little bit too expensive for me to start out, so I can't really pick any tricks that I want to begin with. This kind of makes the first few hours of the gameplay feel a bit grindy, as players need to build up their skater stats before tackling these harder objectives. However, the gradual increase in difficulty is just perfectly balanced, allowing players to improve their skills without feeling overwhelmed. In my opinion, Pro Skater 2 might be my second favorite in the series. The controls are so precise, the level designs masterfully blend fantasy and realism, and the objective structure encourages constant restarts to perfect each individual run. The game's just one more try loop is so captivating that I found myself thinking about playing this game even while I'm at my day job. It's just that good. I was so surprised actually how much fun I had with Pro Skater 2. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. In 2001, Activision would launch O2 Sports Revolution, a new label that would feature a line of action sports games reminiscent of the Tony Hawk series. These games would feature the Pro moniker, which included Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, and Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarding. Travis Pastrana's Pro Moto X would actually evolve into MTX Motor X, which had an excellent alt-metal hardcore OST, featuring the likes of Slipknot, Dope, and Static X to name a few. All these titles were released from 2001 to 2003, and included both Pro Skater 3 and 4. Development. Following the success of Pro Skater 2, Neversoft immediately began working on Pro Skater 3, With the release of the next generation consoles, the team faced the challenge of designing the game for a more powerful system, which required rebuilding the game completely from the ground up. To meet these demands, Neversoft expanded its staff, doubling the team size by merging both the Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Spider-Man development teams. This increase in manpower allowed them to fully leverage the capabilities of the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the GameCube, as well as also making it for 6 other platforms created by various developers including Shaba, Vicarious Visions, and even Gearbox Software. These titles would have at least some form of exclusivity. For example, the PlayStation 1 version featured an exclusive level called Downhill, and the PC version had Doom Guy as a playable character. Neversoft's passion for skateboarding continued to shine during the game's development. They even hosted a kickflip competition among the staff, where they bet $200 for a chance to win $1,200 if they successfully did a kickflip. However, just before its release on October 30th, 2001, Neversoft encountered an unexpected coincidence. So in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, one of the levels in the game called Airport originally included an objective to not stop pickpocketers, but terrorists. Realizing this, Neversoft immediately had to take action and completely change that within a few weeks before the release time. It was simply just a close call that led to no consequences. Neversoft continued to implement their charm and humor in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. The PlayStation 2 version was packed with bonus cinematics that included Neversoft's own skate videos. In addition to a skate video of the Neversoft staff, they also showed their roots and a compilation of their own bales. I thought this was really cool.
Tony Hawk doing on the freeway? Frontside nose grind.
Pro Skater 3 introduced several key mechanical tweaks and improvements that built upon the foundation of its predecessors. In terms of progression, Pro Skater 3 featured 9 goals per level. One major addition was the introduction of stat points and hidden decks for players to collect. A standout gameplay enhancement was the Revert, a new trick that allowed players to seamlessly link vert combos with a manual. This addition significantly boosted combo potential, enabling more elaborate and high-scoring runs. Another new feature was double tapping tricks, such as performing a double kickflip. Additionally, the game introduced a balance bar for both the lip and grind tricks, which made combos a lot easier to manage. The combination of these elements fundamentally changed the gameplay altogether, requiring even veteran players to adjust to these new mechanics. With these tweaks, the scoring in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 reached a new level of insanity, with combo scores often climbing into the millions. Unlike previous games, the special meter now would fill up during the combo rather than after, allowing for even greater combo potential during just one single run. Pro Skater 3 also had tech. It introduced a few advanced techniques that players could exploit to maximize points. One such exploit was called shuffling, which involved quickly switching between 2 paired rails during a grind. By ollieing towards an adjacent rail and hitting the grind button in a rapid succession, players could multiply their combo score much faster than through traditional means. This technique was especially effective in maps like Airport, where players would use the escalator rails for massive combos. The game added several quirky cheats, such as a first-person mode, a realistic physics mod, and a perfect balance cheat. The roster of professional skaters expanded to include 13 pros, with Bam Margera making his debut in the series, wearing his signature him t-shirt. Bam's inclusion was significant, as he replaced Bob Burnquist, who was absent due to a miscommunication between his agent and Activision. However, Bob would return in future Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. In lieu of this, Bob Burnquist was featured in ESPN's X Games skateboarding title. Released back in 2001, the game received mediocre reviews for its overly vanilla gameplay and lackluster design. However, I want to mention the soundtrack for this game was remarkable, with the inclusion of Voodoo Glow Skulls, Sum 41, and Linkin Park. Bonus unlockable skaters also made a return with characters like Wolverine, Dark Maul, and the iconic Neversoft mascot joining the roster.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's right, I'm shaking it. Who wants to watch it? Shake it, don't break it.
The level design. The level design in Pro Skater 3 marked a noticeable shift towards more dynamic environments, with the inclusion of pedestrians, vehicles, and other elements to add a sense of liveliness. The increased poly count on the PlayStation 2 also resulted in more detailed textures, contributing to a polished overall look. Objectives in each level also doubled as puzzles, such as the Axeman challenge in Suburbia, while interactive elements added depth to the gameplay. For example, in LA's level, grinding on 4 tremor rails triggers an earthquake that alters the landscape, creating new paths and opportunities for tricks. The levels were more compact than in previous games. Fans quickly gravitated towards iconic levels like Airport, Canada, and LA, which became beloved by the community for years to come. These environments were designed with replayability in mind, which encouraged players to explore and experiment with different trick lines available. The soundtrack. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did with Pro Skater 2, since Pro Skater 3 had 20 tracks. Building upon the legacy of its predecessor with a larger budget and a more diverse selection of iconic bands, this time around, we see a lot more legendary acts, with the Ramones' Blitzkrieg Bop, Motorhead's Ace of Spades, and Chili Peppers' 1987 hit Fight Like a Brave, which helped add a classic rock inclusion to this mix. The punk rock representation was equally strong, with Roland's Band, AFI, Body Jar, and Alien Ant Farm offered a nice range of punk styles. What's also on this is the Adolescence Amoeba, being one of my favorite in the OST. Zebrahead's featured track in this was Check, and it was featured off of their debut record, Yellow, which was actually before they kind of drifted towards the direction of rap rock. They were a little bit more swingy. On the hip-hop side, the OST presented a good mix of styles and moods, with Redman's Let's Get Dirty being a standout track, due to its later feature in Def Jam Fight for New York. Exhibit's Paparazzi was also an interesting inclusion because it added a somber yet reflective tone, contrasting with songs like, Del the Funky Homo Sapiens' playful If You Must, a track about good hygiene. Another good track was The Next Man Amongst the Madness, which added an old school groove with its fun use of turntables. While for time's sake, I can't go into as much detail as I did with Pro Skater 2. That doesn't take away the greatness of Pro Skater 3's soundtrack, but I do want to mention one particular track that's very important to the relevance of this series. CKY's 96 Quite Bitter Beings, an iconic track, as you know, became an instant hit for fans of the series, giving people an exposure to CKY and Bam Margera. Online community. Pro Skater 3 was groundbreaking in the realm of online play. It was one of the first titles to support online multiplayer even before Sony released its official network adapter. Players had to configure a USB Ethernet setup to skate against others online, marking the start of the thriving Tony Hawk online community. New multiplayer game modes like King of the Hill and Slap add a little bit of spice to the online experience. The new mechanics also led to an increase in glitches, with the BGO online community emerging to share and recreate bugs in this game. So with this newly online experience came hardcore players and even clans to emerge to dominate the online community of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, with one of the biggest being TXO, under the moniker at the time of T3O, which was a team of 6 members considered to be one of the best players in the game, getting together and making a premium clan. Tony Hawk Pro Skater videos were starting to make their rounds with notable entries like Draco's 53 million on Burnside. A lot of these videos now are very low res, so it's hard to really immerse yourself in the modern day into some of these videos, but they're still very fascinating. T3O would host forum sites for players to share their experiences and interact with other members of the community, including the Line Tub, which was launched in September 8th, 2002. There was also something called Tony Hawk 3 Photoshoot, which was used for posting screenshots, and there was also another site called Replayers with a Z, and it was used for video posting. Reputation. By July of 2006, Pro Skater 3 had sold over 2.1 million copies in the United States, earning $77 million in revenue. It ranked as the 14th best-selling game released on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube between 2000 and 2006. The PlayStation 2 version received the highest praise, earning a 10 out of 10 from GameSpot and a 9.7 out of 10 from IGN. The game won several awards, including the prestigious Best Sports Game of 2001 at the E3 Game Critic Awards. Despite its success, some hardcore fans of the series, including Slateman, criticized Pro Skater 3 for its level design. While the ability to chain endless combos were exciting, it also made the game less challenging for players who enjoyed the line-finding puzzle aspect of Pro Skater 2. The game's increased focus on technical mechanics, while generally praised, sometimes overshadowed the thrill of mastering individual tricks and lines. Scores at this point became irrelevant, and that was just because of how easy it was to achieve these combos. Graphically, Pro Skater 3 was a standout, being so polished and smooth visually and featuring faster gameplay than its predecessors. The addition of more immersive environments and detailed character animations gave the game a unique personality that previous entries had only begun to explore. Personal experience. My experience with Pro Skater 3, it was aight. While I enjoyed the game, I think Pro Skater 2 kind of hooked me in a bit too much with its kind of intuitive flow and simplicity. At times, to me, Pro Skater 3 just feels a bit overwhelming. The introduction of double flips and hidden combos often just makes me spam moves, which kind of disrupts my gameplay a lot. That being said, I appreciate the puzzle-like goals and how objectives could rotate depending on your run. However, when I first started playing the game, I found myself needing to do more research to understanding what I needed to actually do, and that sort of initial confusion also kind of took away some of the fun for me. Now that I actually know where everything is, thanks to good old Andy Tony Hawk Pro Skater, this is no longer an issue. On the positive side of the game, I love the level designs, I love all the content they put into this game. The game still had a sense of fluidity and speed that kept me feeling very engaged, and I also enjoyed the dynamic ambient sounds that were in the background to this. It really added a nice touch that helped make me feel more immersed into the game. Overall, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 was a fun experience regardless, but it didn't quite capture the magic of its predecessor for me. Do you think that Pro Skater 2 was better than Pro Skater 3? Whatever your answer is, it might not be as good as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4.